Okay, I'd like to call the meeting in order. Any additions or deletions of the agenda? Yes, there'll be some movements on the agenda. We'll move 13 up to number 4 and.
Yeah, 13 up to 4.
Yep. Motion to.
I will make a motion to move 13 to 4 on our agenda.
Yep. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now approval of the minutes, and there's some approval of some minutes and adjustment of minutes. All right, I'd like to approve the minutes on, is that correct me, on the 12th, and the adjustments are on the 26th. Okay, looking forward to.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 12th.
And I will.
Is Zach here?
Excuse me?
Discussion?
No discussion.
We're just approving minutes from August 12th.
August 12th. There's no discussion.
Well, you said something about August 26th.
We haven't.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet.
We haven't got there.
So,
Howard, did you second?
Yes.
yeah, all in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right, going to.
I can't rule anything on the 26th because I wasn't here, so I don't see Zach on yet. So we may not be able to do anything about the 26th.
All right.
Because I wasn't here for that.
Okay, let's move on. All right.
I can't,
No, I know.
They're
okay.
not here.
Yeah. He said he was gonna be here, but he's on the road for his work.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to
Accounts payable?
accounts payables and payroll and.
You?
Thank you.
So the payroll warrant for this pay period was $7,960.72, and the accounts payable is $142,026.59. $110,000 of that is municipal equipment loan fund money that came from the state of Vermont, that we're paying down the commercial loan that we pay on the truck. Because the municipal equipment loan fund is a 3% interest and the grant is 5.1.
Thank you. Well, they're giving your ticketing cards on the beach. Excellent. All right. We have the Jones for $13,000 on the art contract, part of the payment. This is metal. Check used. Auto diesel. Okay. Lucky gas remaining.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yep. Midwest. Milton. Not close off next one.
That looks like the wrong stuff.
Yeah, and this was before one would be. Send a note to all the 5,000.
Yeah.
So I would hope that went aside for you.
Speak louder, please.
So Putnam and Leonard billed the town of Canton with respect to the 5-town contract that's being worked on for the the Gens Area Rescue Squad, and each town will pay 1/5 of that. So we will bill the other 4 towns their 1/5 portion.
And there will be more bills coming.
And,
So, just to let you know. This is electronic payment.
So federal withholding, state withholding, and here.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept the
That's payable and the AP warrant. And then the payroll.
their second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's
Okay.
that one.
Yep, thank you.
I'll take my folder too.
No, you can have it.
You folded these too.
Yes,
Not
I know.
me.
That's me. That's my spare one. I
Thank
stay
you so
one.
much.
Okay, moving on to the emergency management coordinators report. Bob Groff and Company, please.
Good
Hi.
evening, all. I was in contact this weekend with FEMA as they were visiting individuals in the town about flood damage. And a post went out to Front Porch Forum letting folks know that FEMA would be showing up at their door if they had filed or had any issues with flooding. I received feedback from FEMA that it went well and they are complete with their visits. Working with the select board, the town treasurer, and the road crew on the FEMA reimbursement for the road damage. The grant request has been submitted and is being reviewed right now. I just got some more information back, but it's just telling us that it's in process. I will let you know as more information comes in. A post went out to Front Porch Forum because the seasons are changing, as if we all need to be told that, but it's nice to put that out anyway so folks know that it's happening. And the Vermont Emergency Management Conference is starting tomorrow and Wednesday, and I will be attending it virtually. And that's it for me.
Hey, Bob, thanks. And that meeting we had with you, me, and Rick, and Jeff Stone, that worked out everything?
Pretty much, there's a couple of things I have to touch base with Rick about, but it didn't stop the request from going in for the possibility of getting reimbursement.
Okay, great. Thank you for doing all that, and thanks for getting that coordinated for us.
Yeah, that's huge.
And that's approximately about $81,000, somewhere in that.
That hasn't come up yet. It hasn't gotten that far.
Okay, but it's under the 105,000 threshold.
1.35 million or something like that. So yeah, it's underneath that one.
Yeah, thank God. Okay. Well, there's another threshold where towns look at it.
Yeah.
I think Rick said it was 100,000 for.
Yeah.
The things that are outstanding are some of the paving for the culverts that will wash out, that'll come out of the overall paving for Keys Road, and therefore hopefully put that money back in the town's coffers.
Yeah, and FEMA showed up at my door asking if we had any, I assume they went around to a lot of people and to see if we had any damage. So that's
Just to
nice.
let you know, the FEMA money is not going to be like here tomorrow.
No.
Because there's a major argument about it between the house, and since it's federal money, until they resolve that, it could be 2 to 3 years that we get our money, so. Don't count.
Yeah,
It might be a surprise check in 3 years. So,
would be a surprise.
okay, budget and reserve funds with Kevin Cook.
So I would like to respectfully request that we move the microphone to that seat and that Kevin sits there
So that-
people can hear him.
And we could record.
It's all recording right now, yep. Each have a copy. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to talk about tonight is the budget and kind of based on last meeting's discussion. A lot of us raised concern about what was the 33% increase in the budget. So that is what I looked at and would like to address tonight. And I did some deep digging into the reserve funds, which I will go into detail about tonight, and highlight some discussion points, recommendations, things that we need to be, I think, thinking about that we maybe are not necessarily. Everybody here, I think, has a handout. You probably need your glasses to read. The first page is the budget increases. The budget increase at the top, the amount to be raised from taxes was $782 in '24, and it's over $1 million in '25. That's a almost 33% increase, which is a large increase for a small town budget. So I looked at, and what I did down below is I pulled out the high-end items contributing to that. There's other items contributing to it. These are the big ticket items. The big ticket items are salaries and benefits. They increased almost 90,000 over budget year. Salaries increased almost 20%. With the new COLA increase going in, it's almost 22%. Benefits increased 30% over budget, over actual 17%. I'm not going to get into details. I'm not going to discuss salaries. They're here. You can look at them. Food for thought. In the next 2 slides, and I'm not going to discuss these either, I included, which is fairly up-to-date data from ZipRecruiter on July 9th, 24, what the average town clerk salaries are, top earners, 75th percentile average, etc. It's just additional information for food for thought.
Can we go on and ask questions or?
I would prefer you leave them to the end because I have a lot to talk about and I want to get through it, but if you have quick ones, I don't mind them, but either way is. Road worker salary, so I also included that, which was from ZipRecruiter. Those are just for information. I'm not going to talk about them. Everybody can just look at them over them and come to their own conclusions. What I really wanted to get into is the next item. If you go back to the budget page at the bottom, the equipment is what's really driving another huge increase in the fiscal 25 budget. And where it's coming from largely is from debt service, from debt we incurred in fiscal 24 for the new dump truck, which I will go through in detail when we get to the reserve funds. I do have a few questions here I would like to ask of the select board. The 2024 pickup of $60,000 that his budget is that the total for the pickup or is that net of anything? What does it represent? Total. Okay. 45,000 for the sale of equipment.
So that's a revenue that goes back into the equipment reserve fund.
From the sale of what?
45 was the old dump truck.
We had 53,000 in last year's budget from the sale of the dump truck, or was that from something else?
It had to be from something else. And I'm sorry, so if anyone would actually like me to be able to answer questions without being, hard stopped and guessing, it'd be great to have them ahead of the meeting. Because it's not that there aren't answers, it's just that
No, that's fine.
it's not all in my head.
So this is for the dump truck. Is there any sale price on the old pickup?
Hasn't been sold yet, so no.
But it wasn't budgeted.
That's correct.
Why wasn't it budgeted? If you're gonna get a new one this year?
I think the decision to make to get a new pickup was after the budget was done. And since we can't project how much that will sell for, I've been told explicitly not to budget for things you don't know. For instance,
Okay.
grants.
I would recommend using Blue Book. I mean, it's worth something.
Of course it is.
And I think it's unfair to the taxpayers to be putting all these monies in and not setting off funds that you know you should be getting in against it. So right now, we have 60,000 for a new pickup, nothing coming in for the sale of the old one in the budget. We have 45,000 coming in from the sale of the
So
old
when
dump
we-
truck.
When we do sell it, then it goes back into the system, right? So if we sell it. for-
I understand that, but it affected our tax rate. That's huge.
That would be helpful if you would say that. Thank you.
The 2023 dump truck of 90,000, I'm assuming that's debt service?
Correct. Usually when you buy something big, you have
So I'm assuming that will be much lower, considering we took the 110, we paid down the 227.
we still have to pay back both the community bank loan and the municipal equipment loan.
Yes,
I
I,
have not run numbers on what that annual payment would be.
they will definitely be less than 90,000, I've run them.
Well, isn't that great?
Yeah, so
That's good
I'm,
news.
I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is, we had those lows last year.
We did not have those loans last year.
The 227 you did.
No, I believe that happened. If it did happen, it was at the end of the fiscal year. I can't remember exactly, but it's a fairly new loan.
So I guess what we have to watch for in next year's budget is we should see in next year's actual to budget a huge surplus. Because you're not gonna make $90,000 in debt payments, I know that for sure, I know what they are. And you also should be getting sales proceeds against the 60,000 new pickup.
Hopefully, yeah.
No, that would be-
Not hopefully, we're gonna sell the pickup and we're gonna get some money for it, it's worth something. Okay. So we need to be watching those numbers next year to make sure they come down. And then we have 30,000 going into capital equipment. So this debt service is what is now driving the budget. So when I looked at that, my next question was, well, isn't that what the reserve funds are for? So I then took the next step and I dug deep into the reserve funds, which if you go to page 4, before I get to the reserve funds, I would like to just discuss kind of my understanding of what the purpose is. They're basically to set aside funds currently for anticipated future spend. They're designed for large expenditures not incurred on a regular annual cycle. Basically saving today for tomorrow. The benefits is we set money aside in a separate cash account to ensure it's available when needed, and it minimizes large spikes in our budget. So that's one of the reasons I looked at the reserve funds, because we had a large spike in our budget this year. What is actually happening today in the current accounting for reserve funds? Cash funds are not set aside in separate cash accounts for each respective fund. I think that's a red flag, but I think it's derelict in our duties. I think it should be set aside in separate cash funds. Currently, it is commingled with our general fund operating cash, and it's available for everyday spending needs. So there's a risk that that money could go out for something else. It's not sitting in a designated fund, but it has been voted and designated for. The assigned funds are tracked in the accounting ledgers via due to and due from accounts among the funds. It's a classic case of substance over form. In accounting, the rule is substance always rules over form. This is just form on the books right now. There's no substance behind it. And I think that needs to be addressed. That being said, the next page is where I really want to focus the discussion. There's several topics here I want to hit upon. This, and I'll explain the spreadsheet kind of quickly first. It lists out each reserve fund. It starts with the voted 23 additions, the actual additions we recorded in the ledger via journal entry. It gives the annual report 24 voted additions. And then it starts with the fiscal year 23 ending balance, which was audited. And it shows what we put in for additions. It shows what we spent out of the funds, and it shows our balance remaining as of the end of fiscal 24. I then added a column showing what we've budgeted and voted for 25, showing what's available for 25. Before we get into the details, there are a couple housekeeping items I just want to bring up, probably for Maggie. If you look at the voted additions for fiscal 23 and the actual additions for fiscal 23, there was a mismatch in the general ledger. The tire fund was voted for 2, but it was recorded in the ledger at 12, and the building maintenance was voted for 15, but it was recorded in the ledger at 5. I don't know if that was
Like
ever
your
corrected.
Fiscal years, because there have been some changes, but I'm happy to look at that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's been corrected. I just wanted to alert you to that in case it has an
So
issue.
you're saying 23 and 24 are not reflected accurately in the ledger for the amounts?
I'm
voted?
saying in 23, they voted for 2,000 in the tire fund, and we recorded it as 12. And same with the building maintenance, they voted 15, but we recorded it as 5. It's just a misclassification, but I don't know if that was subsequently corrected. It may have been, I
think
don't
that's
know.
2 different years, but I will absolutely look into it.
And we have kind of the same problem in the fiscal 24 voted additions and what was recorded in the fiscal 24 ledger. There's 5,000 to the building maintenance fund voted for, 2,000 to the digitization, I can't say that word, digitization fund. And we show nothing putting into the building maintenance, and we put out the whole 7 into the digitization fund. So that's probably just another reclass entry that needs to be made. Just minor housekeeping. Okay. So number 3 I wanted to discuss was the truck purchase. So what the big thing that happened, which probably everybody's aware of, is in fiscal 24, we bought a new dump truck. And basically what we did is, I show it down below, that 53,000, I guess, is not correct. I think that Maggie has indicated that where I have sale proceeds from dump truck was from something else. I don't know what it was from.
So again, I'm sorry, if I could
Yeah.
access all my stuff.
That's fine.
The 53 may have been the dump truck. What I hear, what seems to be happening is all of these numbers make sense. There were times in the last 4 years where we changed the requested funding amount to reserve funds because of perceived deficits in certain places and perceived overages in other places. Like, we wouldn't need as much in town building because everything had been pretty much straightened up. So that then with the thing with the tire fund. So I have to look at the town reports to see what year they were budgeted and what year they reported. But if you voted it on FY23, it's actually the FY24 budget. Whereas if you voted it in 24, it's actually the FY25 budget.
I looked at the annual report. I believe I was looking at the fiscal year 23, what was supposed to go in that was voted for.
Okay, well,
And what went in.
I'm
But
happy to look.
But I guess the one thing I want to make sure of is, if that 53,000 is for the sale of the dump truck, then I want to make sure we're not double counting it for the 45,000 that's in this year's budget for a sale of a dump truck. I don't know when the dump truck was sold. Was it sold in 24? Was it sold in 25?
May.
I think so, and
Yeah.
again,
So it was fiscal 24.
May would have been 24, yes.
So it probably was recorded in 24.
Should have been, sure, if we got the income there. Where
So I guess what I'm
was-
wondering is, I just want to make sure that 45,000 isn't pegged for the dump truck, but we already got it.
Didn't we sell a motor or something?
We sold something else too.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I can come
Okay.
back to you.
And I
what
remember
those
it the
numbers-
increase of the tire fund because buying,
Because the
Because
tires,
there's like
$2,000
$2,000 a
doesn't
piece.
even cover one cost of one Raiders tire.
So the 53,000, whatever it's for, I put it against, assuming it was for the dump truck. So basically, the dump truck was $280 some odd thousand. We had sale proceeds of approximately 53, 40 some odd thousand, whatever the number is. And we took out a loan for 227. So what you're seeing in this year's budget, in that 90,000 that Maggie budgeted for, was the debt service that we now are going to start paying going forward to pay the loans down in the future. So what raised the question in my mind was, well, why didn't we have the funds in the highway capital equipment fund that we've been putting away every year? Hence why I started looking at all this stuff. What I came to the conclusion was this. If you look at the ending balance available, if you look at the third column from the end, the general ledger in fiscal 24 gives what the balances are on the general ledger in each of the funds. They total $376,000. The general ledger showed in reconciled cash at the end of fiscal 24, $415,000. Now there's some accruals from last year that need to be reversed, some that need to be booked. So the 415 isn't totally available probably for the reserve funds. But keep in mind, that's where all the reserve fund cash is. It's not in separate accounts. It's sitting in that bundled $415,000. So what it tells me is we're pretty close on, you could start skimming into that money for the general fund if you're not careful, because it's all commingled. But I got to thinking, if we had 376,000, and follow my train of thought here, because it's gonna take me a while to get through this. If we have 376,000 in the funds, why do we need a $227,000 loan? So I went back and looked, and what I'm seeing is, and I understand it, we didn't have enough money in the equipment fund. We only had $16,000 at the end of 24 in that account. There wasn't enough money to pay for the truck, so we went and got a loan. There is enough money in the other funds, but it's designated for another purpose, so you cannot spend it for the truck. My question is, I think what we need to be importantly, to me, the most important focus on this sheet is at the end of each year when you're doing budgeting, looking at that ending balance you have in each of these reserve funds and saying to yourself, one, what's my capital plan? If I don't have a capital plan, I need a capital plan. What am I planning on spending in fiscal 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, the next 5 years? What do I need definitely next year? What do I need that can wait 3 years? Do we need, for example, 157,000 in the Highway Capital Projects Fund? Do we have that money pegged in the next year to be spent, in the next 2 years? We maybe do, and if it is, it's valid, fine. Maybe not. Maybe that money is better spent and moved to another fund. Same thing with the Building Maintenance Fund. Do we really need almost 100,000 sitting in the Building Maintenance Fund? What's coming up in the next year? Now, we knew a dump truck was coming up in the next year. We didn't have it. Maybe we're not putting the money, focusing it in the right spots at the right time. To that end, I think we need to be careful. And I think what's happened, based on what I see here, is we're continuing to kind of just keep adding the same amounts every year. If you look at fiscal 22, 23, 24, 25, they're all pretty much, they are the same amounts, except we increased the equipment fund 10,000 and 25 because we were caught short and probably we realized we need to increase it, which makes sense.
In 10 years.
Right, makes sense. But what I'm saying is we shouldn't be just necessarily, and it may make sense, maybe those are the right numbers, but we need to look at them and say, do I need to put another $20,000 in the highway capital project for next year? Or would that money for now, because I don't have anything planned for 2 years, be better put into an equipment fund? Another example is the tire fund. We put $2,000 in every year. Although due to that 12,000 mistake.
Not a mistake, it was voted on and approved by the voters.
$12,000,
Can you
because
show me that?
Yep, in the annual report.
it's 12,000.
No, I know it was 12,000. It was voted, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so the
But it was
12,000
originally 2, and what happened is you recorded it as 12, and you didn't put it in the building maintenance fund, so now the building maintenance fund,
It's in the tire fund.
but it wasn't supposed to be because it wasn't voted in 23. In 24 it was, in 23 it was not. So what happened in 24, follow my thought process for a minute here. In 24, what happened is everybody took that $12,000, they saw it in the general ledger, and they just kept voting it every year thereafter, straight across the line. They didn't look at it. Do we really need $12,000 in a tire fund every single year? No, it's only $2,000 a year, and that was what was anticipated to put in every year.
Well, actually, we had to spend $12,000 to replace all the tires.
It's a fair question.
But again, we had to replace all the loader tires, and so that,
You're not gonna replace all tires every year.
Please continue, you've made a good point, thank you.
Mhm.
Carry on. What's on?
but I don't understand, what's the question?
You still don't understand what the problem is here.
No, I actually, what
yeah.
I understand you're trying to say, and that was I thought it was a really good question, was that your perception is that the $10,000 that wasn't in the building maintenance fund was mistakenly put in the tire fund.
It was in 23. It's on your general ledger. I pulled these right from the general ledger, Maggie.
Please
Don't argue.
Please don't shout, okay?
It's really, when people shout at us, of course, because we're people, our defenses go up. We can have a conversation and disagree and get to the bottom of it without.
Fine,
shouting
let's
at
get
each
to the
other.
bottom of it.
Okay, so do you have a copy of your, do you have your copy of the annual report?
No.
It's the fiscal
The FY
2023
25.
annual report.
So.
Yeah, that's not- that's the 20 That's the 20, no, that's the 23, right? That's
The 23 budget or the 23?
report, because that's the 22. We would,
Yeah,
if we
that's
voted in
22.
22, would that be the 23 budget?
So all I'm trying to get the point across is, I think we're focusing too much on putting away the same amount of money every year. It's a copy. Every year, we put away the same amount of money in every fund. Hang on, and maybe that's my intent, I understand. The focus should be on the ending balance.
I would agree with you, it is, but the problem is, we have to vote on every one of these funds separately. And the
Yep.
problem is, it's difficult for us to do that, to sit there and say, oh, when we were like the digitization fund, that was just basically, we had to change the name of that. And that had to be on the ballot and voted on. And to increase these things, it's always a difficult thing, because again, you're raising.
Well, what I'm proposing is you wouldn't necessarily increase, for example, in 25, you'd look at that 76.5 that you're budgeting for, and you think, okay, voters will probably agree to that, it's consistent with prior years, but maybe it needs to be reallocated in different buckets rather than what it's done every single year.
Yeah, I probably would agree, but for the last 10 years I've been here doing this stuff, we've never, ever increased anything except for, I think, the tire.
But I'm saying you don't,
I can't move money from fund to fund, can I?
well, hang on, I'm gonna get to that. I'm not proposing that you necessarily increase the total voted additions.
You're just
For
saying-
example, in 25, you could still vote in additions of 76.5, but maybe you vote 50,000 into the capital fund because you need it and 0 into the highway because you got plenty there sitting in anticipation of the next few years. You think the 157 is probably gonna be okay, based on what you've got coming up.
I see
That's
what
all.
you're saying, where
Yeah,
we
that's
just
all.
have a bigger discussion about it instead
Yes.
of just right.
Yes.
Okay.
And then necessarily, if that happens and you start getting your balances where you think you need them, and you're not always gonna be able to, and you would have to go out and get a loan if you didn't, but then you might be able to avoid a loan in the debt service. That's all I'm saying. Because when we get loans, what happens is, not only are we putting money away ahead of the time for the future, we're now paying money through our tax rate for past money that we spent through loans. We're getting double hit in the budget. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
And you're absolutely right, and, the question is really, Kevin, on this, I would say, people on the select board are, again, only so much knowledge that they have on this, Joe or Susie comes on the select board, now you're supposed to understand this concept about moving funds and moving money. It's a big deal, and it's a big nut to understand this.
No, I
concept.
understand, and I'll get to that in a minute.
And
You're
so-
right, I get that. I get that.
And again, I think one of the things that would be really helpful, right, versus looking at this retrospectively in the mirror, is we have working budget meetings every fall.
And I will be at them this year.
Perfect,
I
but we've
promise you.
had them,
Yay.
okay, so that would be really helpful to have people, another set of eyes.
Well, like I said, for the last 5 or 6 years, no one ever comes to those, no one ever comes to the
So-
budget meetings, no one ever
We're
asks any
doing-
questions, no one, anything.
Again, and I'm sorry if I'm coming across, I don't mean to be defensive. I'm trying to bring this forward as we the town. This is not the select board, it's not Maggie, it's us as a town. How can we maybe manage the money a little bit better?
That's awesome.
That's
Thank
all.
you, thank you for that.
That is something we'd be up for.
We're definitely open to help with that.
I think,
Hold on, there's, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been in town for 6 years. I did a capital improvement plan, town I lived in for it. It's a simple process where you go, you figure out, it's a 10-year time horizon where you estimate what your expenses are gonna be, replacement of equipment, or paving roads, all the different things. You talk to the people in the different, who are relevant to those specific funds. And then you just put a spreadsheet together and figure out how much money you need to hit those benchmarks when those expenses are incurred. it's very simple process.
We started a 5-year plan on this whole process on trucks and putting away money so we don't take these major hits. But we bought other equipment because of certain reasons. We bought, and this is a great example, was like we bought a articulating mower. We would rent one every year. And that would cost us almost like $6,000 for a week of use on this thing. And Rick goes, oh, we can get one for $50,000. And I'm going like, how long is this thing gonna last? 10 years? He goes, yeah. Well, that just paid off that I could buy a mower and I could use it anytime I want, not in a little week period, and I could do more mowing. And it's just like, that makes sense for us to purchase those things like that than sitting there and saying, let's pay $6,000 and next year it's $60,500 and it goes up in prices.
I mean, I think it's all really good points, and when people have like this type of knowledge to contribute, it is appreciated. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a math person, that's what I do, I'm a math teacher, right? So, but does that mean I know much about roads and bridges? It doesn't, but that doesn't mean I'm not constantly learning, and so people who have that knowledge, you wanna come in and help us out? That would be amazing, right? So,
I mean, we all on the board want to be successful. There's nobody saying, let's tear this place down and rebuild it. It's just like, we want to move forward, we want to have a great town, and we want to be,
place where
successful.
people wanna live.
Okay,
Kevin,
go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
I guess so to sum up this page, and I'll move on and get, the rest of the stuff's gonna go quick. To sum up this page, a couple questions I had, they're not questions, they're just things to think about, I guess. One, I know Maggie's paid the 110, using the 110 Vermont loan, which is smart, which is at 2% to pay down the National Bank of Middlebury
Which is
loan of
very
5%.
difficult to get because
Yeah.
they're slow to produce.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is that 90,000 debt service in my mind is not gonna be 90,000. I know that already from the debt number. So there's some leniency there. The other thing I'm wondering is, of the 60,000 new pickup we're buying, and if we get some sales proceeds, whatever they may be against it, the price will be hopefully somewhere south of $60,000. And if we put away 30,000 this year, we got 46,000 in the equipment fund. Is it possible we may not need that 60,000 line item in the budget, that we have enough in our equipment fund to pay for it? So it's possible. So what I'm saying is, a silver lining possibly in the cloud of the 33% budget increases, I think the numbers probably in the equipment section, based on what has actually transpired, are probably overstated, which hopefully means the next year's tax rate should come down. But we'll have to watch and see.
So part of that truck purchase was we expected the truck to be here 6 months ahead of the time when it actually got here. So it was anticipated that we would have to make up payments in the prior fiscal year that had not been budgeted.
Okay.
So that's some of why that number is high.
And the expense of the new pickup truck being as high as it is, it's actually a small dump truck, which the whole idea and philosophy of that is to drive the small dump truck that gets higher mileage than one of our larger dump trucks that gets like 10 miles to the gallon or less than that. So we're driving a smaller pickup truck, we'll be able to do more things with it, carry stones, and do everything with it. And we're planning to keep it for 8 years. That's our plan. And not just move it out after 5.
I think that's all I had to say on that page. That was the bulk of this. So if you want to just quickly jump to page 7, and this answers, I think, actually page 8, but we'll get to it. So basically, I've talked about everything already on page 7, so I'm really not going to hit anything on that. It's more just for your information. It's everything we just talked about. If you jump to page 8, and this was to your comment, Howard, well, what can we do? So what I'm recommending is a couple things. And I'm not necessarily recommending C, I just put it in there. It is a true alternative, but I'm not saying I recommend it necessarily. You either do A or B or C. A is basically, I do recommend you set the money aside. I think there's a huge risk when it gets commingled in the general fund that money is just going out to checks like you wrote today, and you're not keeping an eye on whether that money is still sitting in those funds and where it's going. I'd be very careful of that.
I mean, I do that at home.
Yep. And I don't know. Well, we can talk about whether it needs to be 6 accounts or 1 account where you put all the monies in. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. The other thing is what I talked about, and I'm sorry, what's your name? Steve, what Steve talked about is putting together a capital budget plan, and then comparing that capital budget plan to your ending balance when you're doing budgeting of the prior year of what's in your funds, and then using that to plan what you want to put away each year in the fund to get to where you want to get to the best you can do. It may require some juggling, but that's where you give and take on certain things, and we make a, best choice decision.
Yeah, well, as budgets are actually a roadmap. They're not,
Exactly.
they're not for or against.
Right.
It's a road.
Right.
Now, to that end, today, what you could do, and I realize this could be difficult, and it's something you can look at, and you may come to the conclusion, it's not warranted. You may come to the conclusion, yeah, it's something we'd like to do. It's up to you. But you can reallocate the balances among the reserve funds to amounts to better reflect your anticipated upcoming spend if they don't reflect that currently today. It would require you to put it again to the vote of the voters, like you do now for your annual thing. You'd have to put a special vote. Listen, these are the balances. We want to move them. This is why. You show the capital plan, you compare it, you explain to them your logic. They'll probably say yes. It's something you can do. I'm not sure it's warranted. It's something to look at.
That's, that would be helpful because we do have excess money,
Yep.
into like the building fund.
Yep.
And the question is, we were anticipating doing certain things, and all of a sudden, with ARPA funds, we got money from that, which we didn't have to expend now.
Okay.
So which was a huge benefit. Yes.
The other thing, and this is just just my thought process. You guys can do what you want. Establish reserve funds in the future only for spend over a certain dollar amount. We're getting to where we have $1 million budget. And for example, a $2,000, I'll just take it as an example, a $2,000 a year, maybe it is now 12, say it was 2, a $2,000 a year tire fund. When you look at it and I know it wasn't $1 million budget back in the day, but you compare it today to $1 million budget, it's 0.2% of the budget. It's not even worth fooling around with. Just incur your tire expense when you incur it and move on. It's not a big deal. Concentrate on your big funds, highway, buildings, equipment. Those are your 3, and special office needs like digitization or whatever you need. But I would try to not go crazy with all these funds. That's
That logic makes a lot of sense.
They were created before I even.
And the other thing you can do, if you put it to vote, I'm assuming, is you may broaden the purpose of the reserve funds. For example, the highway capital projects funds. I don't know what the purpose of that fund is. If it's maybe just for paving, or maybe you want to change it from, it can be used for paving or for culverts or for anything related to highway. You can broaden it so it's more available if you need it, rather than tying yourself right down to one specific thing.
Well, that would be
Actually, a great
beneficial because
suggestion.
it is for paving. It's like every 4 years we try to develop this fund, and that's when we get a surplus of money from the state to do paving. So that would be example when we paved all of Lake Street from Pease to the town line. We got a huge amount of money. We had to put $100,000 and they gave us like $300,000 to throw the paving down. So, yes.
Yeah, so that plan certainly is in place to be able to maximize what the state was.
C, I'm not necessarily agreeing, Will, but I guess you could vote to dissolve all the reserve funds and just manage your capital spend year by year and try to make sure you got some excess cash sitting around. But that gets very loosey-goosey sometimes.
And what the trouble is, when you have new people on the select board, this is.
You lose a transition and the
Exactly,
continuity.
and or it's like people go, okay, why are we doing this and how come we did this and who's gonna teach me how to do that? Or when you replace people, like when Maddie was hired, no one actually was here to actually show her to do these. And it was all kind of a seat of the pants kind of thing. And we've had some help, but so, yeah.
So the last 2 pages I'm not gonna hit on. These I just put down when Melissa talked a couple weeks ago on internal controls. It got me thinking, and I just put down my thoughts based as a CPA and auditor as to things that if you had good internal controls, some of the things you would be doing and looking at. I'm not gonna go through them. It's more for you to read at your pleasure. If you need to go to sleep some night, read them. And I'm happy if you have questions about them to talk with you later in a special meeting, or if you don't understand them and want help and guidance on them, I'm happy to sit down with you and go through them. But it's mainly meant for to help you, and then you can decide what you want to do.
So this highway fund invoices should be approved by the road department.
To me, that's an easy fix, and it just is to me, it's a segregation of duties that we have the employees, and it could just be fixed very easily.
Before that, I looked at every invoice, he didn't necessarily sign them, now I have him put his initials on every
He's always looked at them.
invoice.
So does he still look at them?
Yeah.
Okay,
He signs them all now, but he's
okay,
always looked.
okay. So that's good. Okay. All right, so that's all I had. So if you have,
I appreciate that.
sorry, that was long-winded. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
It's like,
No,
you
it's
know,
great.
but like,
It's
you
really
know,
helpful.
I would say doing this stuff, it's really hard for us because, you know, we're all do different things as our careers. I was a firefighter, paramedic, you know, and I understand construction. I know some other things like that. And, you know, she does accounting and
No, I
Zach does
don't.
sales.
No.
I mean, math,
Man,
yeah.
I don't do accounting.
So it's just, those things we have to
We're
count
trying
on
to-
her or count on Rick. And if Rick says, hey, I need this kind of truck, and it's like, why would it be me that would sit there and say, who doesn't plow any of the roads? No, you're wrong. You need to buy this.
And that's where it gets complicated,
And-
right? So
and, you
we're
know, I have
trusting
to
that
rely
everybody
on
knows.
him, and I have to trust him because he's been given equipment sometimes that were just like, somebody bought him this, and it's like, this is useless.
So
And
it's,
that's happened three times, and it's just like, and we were trying to get away from that because those are his skills, and he should be able to say what he needs to make his job successful.
so.
okay, so any
cool.
questions? No? I
Thank you
probably
so
put
much.
everybody to sleep.
That was, no, actually, it was
It was
amazing.
very
Thank you,
beneficial.
Kevin. I
Thank
appreciate
you, Captain, I appreciate that.
it. All right.
All right.
So number 6, we're gonna table, because I've not done the legwork on that yet.
Okay, on the Virgins Plant and Water District representative, what we'd like to do is get some information on people who are interested in this. Excuse me, we can put an ad in the front porch forum or the town of Penn and our front porch forum. And if we can get some resumes on some skill and ability, it's a very big board. There's probably like 10 to 12 people in that board. It's, and they meet monthly, and there's a lot of action that goes in there. And I don't know if anybody's ever been to the Virginia's Plant and Water District meetings. They're not the most exciting.
I'm wondering why it is now that you're asking that. I've expressed interest in filling that position. You have not come up with anything to provide me with an application or anything. Why you're just getting to it now.
There's no application involved. There's no application involved in being on the select board, the DRB, planning commission, or any positions. Usually it's a resume that's given to us and we look at it. And
Have you asked for one? No.
you know, I understand that you might be anxious to move forward on this, and I appreciate that, but there's a lot of irons in the fire, and again, and maybe it's not necessarily a good answer for people, but I have other things too to do, and Teresa does too, so as a volunteer, I'm doing the best I can, being on the TAC committee.
We haven't, and we haven't, yeah, and we
all these
haven't,
other
we haven't
things.
talked about this yet, but we're getting to it, and it's,
Thank you.
and I apologize that it's not in the time frame that you wanted. That's why we're talking about it tonight.
And so, and it would just consist of going up to the town meeting date, that's all that position would be there, and that would have to
Okay.
be run again.
Yeah.
So,
So, it sounds, if you can just provide a resume, send it in, and then we're gonna post it, and then we'll go
we'll
from
put
there.
some notices out on Front Porch Forum, looking to see if any Pantonian resident is interested in being on the Virginia's Plant and Water Board, which is there's a lot of problems there, and there's a lot of issues going on with water mains and everything else, and aging systems.
So it's great if you want to just send your resume in, and then we will go from there. It's the first time we've talked about it, so this is the opportunity to send it in. You do?
Yes.
What is that?
For 7.5 years. so
Okay.
I didn't know what the position
Great,
consists of.
awesome. That would be great, because if we see your resume, then we'll see that.
That would be beneficial.
I had no idea. That
Yeah.
would be great.
Okay, tax bill mailing,
Anticipated to go out by Friday.
yay. Okay, Freedom of Information Act policy.
Oh, we tabled that because I have to contact the lister, and I have not had an opportunity to do that. So we're tabling that for 2 weeks.
Freedom of Information Act policy, I've contacted VLCT, we have some items on that, and we will be, I've talked to the attorney there, and a formal policy and also a form there, I will be able to produce shortly, but I have to make sure it's precise and have to send it back to VLCT for their approval, so I am working on that.
Can I go back just a question for Teresa? The replacing of the contracted lister, who was that contracted lister before? Was it?
Aleph.
Escott.
I thought it was, or maybe they did the reappraisal.
He did, that was the same
Yeah.
person.
Because I thought,
Real Capital Consulting is his
who came to my
company.
house to do the appraisal? I thought it was-
Ben,
Benton,
Will Ben, no,
Yes.
not Bill,
Will,
Jr.
his son.
He was contracted by Real
Oh,
Capital
okay.
for the
Yeah,
reassessment.
right, he was doing that. Okay. We are moving on to public comment. Weber, go ahead.
With no offense intended, but I'm just wondering on the basis of the large increases in salary.
Well, looking at the salary and benefits, I understand that Kevin showed us what ZipRecruiter actually does, but going that I've actually called the municipalities around and actually found out what their wages and benefits and hours are paid for. Because from my experience being in negotiations within collective bargaining, you have to have evidence to prove that how much people make. And ZipRecruiter kind of gives you a rough item, but I've made the effort of going to see most of these municipalities and getting what their wages are. But it's clearly is, if we want to be competitive and keep the employees that we have to pay them relatively close, because they all look at each other, and then they also do what they call job hopping, and they move from one job to another. And since they are in the municipal retirement plan, most of them are, except I think there's ones in might be Bridport. It doesn't have that. They're in some other kind of plan. It's just kind of in Cornwall's that way too. But they just can move their pension to a different plan, and it doesn't affect their pension at all. So it's just like, so what they're doing is looking for, oh, they're paying $35 an hour. Oh, I'm going to go to, for Jens, they pay $39 an hour. And then they just go over there and they get those benefits there. And it's just like, that was the difficult thing. And for,
And
So
one,
you have
and
that information you can share?
I haven't, it changes yearly, but I would, doing that kind of thing takes a preponderance of time to do that. And if that's something, it's just like, what we looked at is how to keep Jeff Stone and Rick Klucher and Maggie McCormick, because we have to look at what other clerks and everybody else gets paid. And we're making sure that we're relatively close to most of these areas to make sure they're, Jeff Stone started out with a larger amount of money. Actually, he started out really high. But the reason why we hired Jeff Stone at that rate is his skill and ability. First of all, he's done a lot of work for the town. He can work our grader, he can work our excavator, he can do a lot of the things that we absolutely need to have. And we did try looking at hiring like an 18-year-old to do this. We got him out of, what's that place in Middlebury, Hannaford Center, and we got a young man out of there, and he was like, I don't want to do all this work. And it's just like, and Rick's like coaching him to do these things, and it's like, you have to do this, and he goes, oh, I don't want to do that. It's just like,
So, and the other part is that we have to remember that we have 3 employees, we want to keep them because like Maggie came in cold, like there was nobody here to train her. So once we invest in it, we invest in our people, we want to keep them because we put a tremendous amount of time and they've learned so much in that training. So.
Totally understand.
your question is, Linda was here when Maggie started. Linda did not have the skills to do that.
She started, she was here, but she wasn't a fully trained clerk.
Well, I'm just, and you know what? I don't want to actually speak bad about anybody. I will not speak bad about anybody, but I'm just saying, there's been a lot of work in Waltham. That's all I can tell you. So, yes. Hi, Terry.
You can speak up here so it gets recorded.
Yes, I just wanted to verify, follow understanding. Town around you, there were towns of our size.
Actually, that would just be encompassed of one town. That would be Weybridge. Because Weybridge has part-time people, but salary-wise, we're relatively close to that. Addison, well,
No, actually, no, Weybridge, her salary was $38,000 just this year, so we.
she's a part-time employee.
She is a 32-hour week, has no assistance, just her treasurer, no assistance. We paid $106,000 for our clerk and treasurer, 106. They take 42 and get the job done. So that would be what I would like you to address.
Well,
I'd like
I
to see the 106K in my pocket.
Well, you got 80,000 plus 26 for assistant. So that's.
I don't get $26,000.
Your assistant, it's.
okay, you know
Yeah,
what, Melissa?
Please.
That's fine, I'm sorry.
Let's,
Right, is that not?
that is what you're saying, if
And-
you could just say it more kindly. I mean, we're trying to work through all.
She interrupted me by saying.
You're right, I'm so
I would
sorry.
like to have that in my pocket.
Well, when you said $106,000, I was,
said for an assistant and a clerk.
and I would also, can I?
It's in your budget. You
Can,
put it in there.
can I speak now, Melissa, please? What we're looking at, when we hired the assistant, we looked and tried to find somebody to take that job. And we couldn't find people to take that job. It is, again,
That number has been in there for years.
I'm sorry, Melissa, can I finish my statement?
Yes, you may.
You know, since I was involved with that, and I've been involved with a lot of these hires for that, it is really hard to find somebody to actually do things. And you know what, who have any kind of skill and ability. So again, we found somebody, and this is what the going rate is. And I would have to tell you, they're washing dishes at 3 squares at $23 an hour. I am not going to pay somebody $19 an hour to work in the town of Penn. Well, somebody can go at work at 3 squares and get $23 an hour to wash dishes. And if you think those are unrealistic numbers, you should really go talk to these people. And well, I'm great. Show me the numbers, show me the proof, please do. But
Okay.
to be just disruptive and argumentative about this, it's really troubling.
It's just hard.
Well, really, I mean, trying to keep good
You
employees.
take responsibility for the choices you make, for the contracts you made.
Thanks for interrupting me.
You take responsibility.
We do take responsibility. Yes. Thank you.
I guess what we've seen, and I think why people are getting kind of sensitive to the salary issue, is they have been large increases over a very short period of time. And, I mean, I would argue, was the 3.9% COLA increase really required when you just gave them a 20% increase in the prior year? That includes COLA and more.
Right.
They didn't need a COLA increase.
On that is, the COLA increases were what CPI is for the
You
Northeast.
gave it to them when you gave them 20% increases.
We gave them that.
I have never worked in a company where I get my health insurance 100% paid, my retirement 100% paid, and don't contribute. Never. Yet in this town, that's what's happening.
Okay, then you should go work for the city of Virgins, because they do that. You should go work for the city of Ferrisburg, because they do that. And, you know, Weybridge does that, and Addison does that. Those are areas where
They're not paying them $80,000 a year. And they give them more benefits.
Have you ever contacted them and looked at
This
that?
just told you what they're doing.
Again, I'm just telling you, I talked to the clerks, and this is, I see you. I will call on you. Just be patient.
I'm just saying, this needs to be, when this is what I want to see, and it's me personally, and I'm gonna be involved in the budget meetings this year, believe me, I'm gonna be involved.
Great, love to have you.
When the budget is presented to the town, when there's large increases in town meeting, you need to highlight, salaries are increasing 20%. You need to highlight those items and make people aware before they vote. To not do that is a disservice to this town. And that is a service you need to be
And
doing.
Kevin, I would appreciate that, and I would love to do that, but I gotta be honest, most people don't come to town meeting.
That's not what I'm addressing. For the ones that are there, you need to address the salaries.
Okay.
You can't just say, this is my total budget number, let's vote. You need to highlight those. I would never go to my boss and bring a budget in for a 30% increase and not explain the differences for him to understand. I'd be fired the next day if I did that. Fired.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, Sharon?
On this, I just want to suggest that if you want to go look at other towns, when they pay their employees, you can go to their websites and have their town reports posted usually, and their budgets. And you can see what other towns employees make. I did not find any that were as high as that.
And I will tell you, when you look at their town reports, it doesn't necessarily show the real factor on how people are paid. No, it doesn't, I'm sorry.
Are you saying your town reports aren't accurate?
I am saying that.
Well, I'm sorry, Howard, I don't buy that.
Well, I would say.
They're audited.
Our town reports are more based on theirs.
There are county report complaints on that, so
Oh.
we were the only county report ever that complained on the staff salaries.
Actually, well, you should go get Addison's and look at theirs, because they do the same thing. And so,
The town report has never been complained, never had a second complaint like that. I went all the way back. It's always been complained.
we've changed it. There's like different.
Okay.
Oh,
Why?
hold it.
Why are you
Kevin,
changing-
Kevin,
Wait,
Kevin,
wait,
there's
we
other
got
people that got
people
their
with their
hands
hands
up.
up.
So can I just,
Because lack of transparency.
and I'm just saying, just be
That's good.
reasonable and talk to us. Shouting at us is going to sit there. We will end the meeting and we will go home, because I am not gonna sit here and get shouted at. I'm not gonna have a meeting like we had last time. That was way out of line, and you know what? If you guys wanna run this town, I'm more than happy to let you take the reins and do it. Because you know what? We spent a lot of time and a lot of effort here, and yes, Mary Rudd.
I didn't have a chance. Wait a minute. Terry, were you still speaking to what we were speaking about before?
This will lend a little bit to that conversation as well. You know, the salaries.
Are you good? Just, okay. I did a deep dive to benchmark what we're paying for the road maintenance, basically. These are budget comparisons by town. I use Panton, Waltham, Addison, Ripton, Leicester, Granville, and Weybridge, trying to stay within towns that had similar numbers of miles of roads. Weybridge is, or sorry, Waltham is the low at 11 miles of road, and Addison was the high at 42 miles per road. And what I did was go into each town, town plan, including ours, came with all the
personnel costs, which is in column B, and I think anybody can get this after the meeting. And then I also added the personnel cost. And every town that I looked at, the town reports have the details on the salaries, the benefit costs, and the reserve costs. So it's just a pain to go to everybody's website, figure out everybody's format, but it's very doable, and the clerks are right in there as well. So anybody that wants to do it, I can show you how to do it. But just for reference, the average cost per mile of those towns is $14,581, excluding personnel. Our cost is $24,315 per mile. That is a 67% higher than the average. If you do include the personnel, and this includes salaries and benefits and insurance, the average is $18,253 per mile, and ours is $34,673 per mile, which is 90% higher than the average. So it's just a little bit tedious to do, but it can be done for any comparison you want to do with similar towns. And I just picked these based on the mileage, which came from VTrans, and I used class 1, 2, 3, and 4 roads, and excluded state highways because we don't pay for those. And this is exclusive of grants or anything else. This is the budgeted amount that we expect to spend. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Susan Howard, speaking of these things, I think when, and I know, this has been brought up by other people, when those salaries were missing in the county report, that was a red flag to me, even though I wasn't really suspicious of anything. But it is a red flag, and I'm coming from being a federal employee for 33 years, and my income was always out there. I think people are concerned about their income, they know, they can work somewhere else. I think as a municipality, I think those salaries, that it's fair for those to be listed in the county report. And my second point, or question actually is, I see that the road foreman and the highway crew, which is Jeff, they get paid just about the same. And
$5,000 different.
yeah, why are they the same? Because I thought historically it was always, the foreman was the boss.
He is. He's in charge. That is true. He is. That's why Rick makes $5,000 more than Jeff Stone.
I think,
There should be a video.
so one of the things is to bring,
No,
no,
honestly,
no.
It used to be, they would make 70 or 60, the other guy would make 40 or 50.
Okay, so I'm gonna address the question. One of the things for getting somebody who was at the level of somebody who just come in and start working, we had to be comparable for where he had been working previously to get him to come work for us. He was making quite a bit where he came from,
Yeah.
so. Mhm.
He had
And so
to,
he
was making that much. He was making probably maybe $7,000 or $8,000 less at the Virginia's Panton Water District.
Less than Rick, or less than
What he's getting now. And so the problem is we had salary compression. And if I added that $7,000 or $8,000 to get him, so he could like do the excavator and the grading that he does for us, we needed him. And then that would mean that Rick's salary got in compression. And so we said, how do we solve that? We go, this is what this man makes as the individual. We will add $5,000 on top of that. So Rick is in charge, and that's where the $5,000 came from.
So I'm sorry, there are 2 full-time employees.
correct,
That's correct.
correct.
We have a total of 3 full-time employees, and we have a 1 part-time employee that works 15 hours.
Kathy.
Did you factor in the 100% health insurance and the 100%
Absolutely, because
retirement? Well, then you better add to your $5,000 figure.
we factored in those because that's what other towns are getting, and that's what he was getting paid for Jen's Panton Water.
And
Well, I'm just telling you what,
You're gonna get 100% health insurance, you need to get 100% use.
and I'm just saying what is important. I'm sorry, Kevin, I'm just answering the question.
I think what could solve a lot of this, Howard, this is from my personal opinion.
Okay.
When people were talking about the salaries are not being put in the show online, it immediately raises everybody's suspicion.
Mhm.
I think
There's
that's
no
totally
transparency.
fair.
Hang on, let me finish. So what happens is you get what you get in here today. If you be transparent and you put out there what you're gonna do and explain why, that you need to do it at town meeting when it's voted on, let the voters vote, then they have it, there's no complaint. But when you do it all behind the scenes, you don't show the numbers, it just raises everybody's defenses, you're just hurting yourself.
Well,
If you put that on the voters' lap,
You know, I think that's something we definitely will take into consideration when we go to put together the presentation for town meeting this year. I mean, I think I think it's a very reasonable thing for us to look at. I don't disagree with you.
because I think what you're gonna have then is you're gonna start seeing what happens with the school budgets. People will start saying no, and then you're gonna have to go back and rethink the budget. Yes, it's work, but it's what you're doing for the voters, the voters' decision.
and I appreciate that, you know, and I would say on the salaries of Rick Klucher, he's been here for 20 years, and the man is like, he's a valuable asset to our town. He knows where everything is, and training somebody or getting somebody to know where all the things are or what happens here, there's no real plan. Rick Klucher's not you know, he's got examples on what needs to be done in this day and what happens then. That isn't, you know, most towns don't have that. They don't have a plan out that far. So he has to do all this stuff and he has to teach somebody to do that. So Jeff Stone is just sitting in the wings. So when Rick retires, Jeff Stone can become road foreman because we need somebody that has skill and ability and who's going to be around here for a while. It's important to have some continuity.
It was-
What I'm afraid that could happen is when Rick does retire, and Jeff does assume moves into the foreman position,
That's-
and he's making pretty much the foreman salary now. You go to hire somebody next, and they're gonna come in and go back to all these reports and say, well, wait a minute, you hire assistant to the road foreman, you paid him almost the same as the road foreman. No, almost the same amount. You're setting a precedence that you may not wanna be setting,
And
and you gotta be careful.
I would agree with you on that, and I would say, I think the advantage would be to sit there and say, show me your skill and ability. If you don't have the ability to run the grader, don't have a CDL, you don't know how to use our excavator or our loader, then it's like, I am not going to pay you $68,000 or $70,000 for
If you
money.
have a qualified foreman, you can afford to hire somebody who does not have those skills. The foreman can teach you, that's his job as a foreman. You don't need somebody to come in and have the exact same skills as a foreman. That's the foreman's job. Works the same way with the town treasurer. Same exact way. You gotta have the skills,
And again,
especially when you're paying those salaries. Those skills better be there.
and I would appreciate that, but again, hunting for employees,
Howard, I read the Addison Independent article, and they have 30 applicants to Maggie's job. 36, they said. 36 applicants applied for the town manager treasurer. It was in the Addison Independent. Take your radar.
4 years ago, I don't know, I didn't see the applicant.
You look it up, it's online.
yeah, and I would ask them one question, do you know what Gatsby is? They go, what? What?
She doesn't know how to run a bank account.
You know,
Okay,
Kevin,
so
stop, please.
It's unnecessary.
I'm telling you,
No, just please.
well, you brought up Gatsby, you brought it up.
I'm just saying, when I interview people, they go,
We're paying somebody $145 an hour to come in and do accounting that's not being done by the two people we have.
and you're absolutely right, Donna
That's a
doesn't
problem.
know,
When you're paying those
accounting.
salaries, that's a problem.
And I'm, again, Kevin, I don't know where to find somebody who has those skills, you know? And again, and you know, ZipRecruiter, all that stuff, that's all really fun stuff, but I gotta tell you, we really made
It sounds
efforts.
like you're caving into the employees' hours, that's all I have to say. You don't wanna hire, and you're worried, and you just give them whatever they want.
And you know
That's
what?
what's happening.
You know what happens, Kevin? First of all, then I have to sit here, and when you come to the town hall and ask me a question, I'm gonna go, I don't know.
So
But it's
you're hiring
open.
and paying people in fear, that's not a good position to be in.
Okay,
That's-
let's move forward. How
It's not
about,
money, we have a right to talk about
okay,
it.
Kevin, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's quite unreasonable that you raised, not to, anything, but you raised your salary over $10,000 in 1 year. That's a huge increase in 1 year in salary, any job. And I think that's a little excess, very much excessive increase in a year.
We're gonna go Mary, then Terry, then Jamie.
Yes, I understand we do have an account for prior to some installation. Where the budget is at and how we make up the numbers. So we don't, taking on certain measures like overtime or is it select board discretionary money or, what's the plan?
Here you speak.
How much money have we spent on our,
None, because we haven't been invoiced, but we have accounting help in a budget line, which was significantly reduced when we moved from Nemrick to Lori Curler for monthly bank reconciliation. So I don't think it's going to be an excessive amount of money.
So we
But
did,
it's also absolutely necessary from what you all are presenting to us here.
so because
If
we
there's a
cut
problem,
something
then we need to
before we
fix it.
hired something.
So I'm looking at your sheet, is the money that you're referring to in master service $600?
I don't know.
It's under 730 professional services.
you know? $600, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for this,
Yeah, and
for this
based
month.
on the idea that we would have reduced our accounting needs from not using them at $145 an hour.
Yes.
So we've cut one thing to replace with another.
Do we have any idea or estimate from the person who's subcontracted, what kind of hours she expects to spend? Because she's been in and looking at things, right?
Yes,
And has she provided an estimate of how much it's going to take to?
no,
Is that?
But when we spoke with her, when we have it, and during the interview process, she thought there would be some upfront hours, but that would get into like 4 to 6 hours per month.
So is the work she is doing being trained to be taken over by our treasurer and our clerk?
We are, right now, we're trying to make sure that everything gets up to par, and then we can make those decisions moving forward.
Can I just request that somebody check in with her now that she's looked in and see what she's.
Absolutely.
To get an estimate so that we can proactively figure out what the money's coming from instead of the next.
Absolutely. Terry?
I remember Melissa mentioning at one of the meetings that in 2014, it separate the clerk and the treasurer position.
Mhm.
And Howard, I think you must have been on the board then. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Do you
real.
remember what happened?
Well, yeah, the problem was, one employee was the clerk, and one employee was the treasurer, and that employee of the treasurer left, and then we were just stuck with the clerk, and we asked that clerk if she wanted to help us take these other responsibilities and take more hours because they only work 30 hours a week. And she goes, I don't want to do that. And I go, well, we're gonna change job titles, and this is what we're going to do, is to do that, is we're going to combine the treasurer clerk into that one position. And then we went into that position, and then we hired Pam Korea to work here.
And I think the impetus behind that was, it's hard to find really qualified full-time employees. It's really hard to find fully qualified part-time employees. And so the idea was to create a good full-time job with benefits so that we could attract qualified.
And we hired this woman from Bristol, who was a assistant clerk treasurer for the town of Bristol. she came and worked here, and then she worked 40 hours a week. And then we said we added the hours total of one employee and another, and we said we're at 50 hours. We have 40. Can so we can take another 10 hours that we have expended on and add another 10 hours to get a part-time employee. So this person, so we could have somebody in the office Monday through Friday and have information moving out. Because the biggest problem we were having is employees were showing up at 7 and leaving at 3, and they weren't there. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
it was hard for anyone who is like working full time to stop at the town hall and get information or look at things unless you're retired and you can go, oh, I can go at noon, you know, it's like, or if you work locally, it was beneficial, but so we were
It did.
trying to make it more customer friendly for everybody to do that. And we thought that would be beneficial.
And so we knew that there were gonna be increases because we were adding benefits, but we felt that the trade-off of being able to hire people who were more qualified or being able to attract applicants who are more qualified based on the fact that we are offering a full-time job with benefits was something that seemed to be a good way to move towards the future. So we were paying 50 hours, and so officially, right now, we're paying for 55 hours. The difference is we've ended up paying more because we have higher salary and benefits to attract employees.
Yes, Sharon.
Since we voted to have it separate, two separate jobs, aren't we also supposed to vote to consolidate it? Wouldn't
We-
voters, like, just like eliminating a lister or eliminating?
No, actually, that's under the auspices of the
Of the
select board. We've decided to favor that.
I have a couple other things that I need to cover, if you don't mind. One of them is the use of the freedom of information term. I had sent an email out that term applies only to federal agencies. It does not apply to state and local government.
I understand that.
Okay, so that is, the.
More people understand that than if I would say the terminology that you cite.
Well, it's the Vermont Public Records Act of
Okay.
1976.
And-
Thank you.
Not the FOIA. The other thing is the open meeting law. It has been added to the website, but it is incomplete and therefore it is misleading. It has only partially been added. This is what's on the website, right here.
Yes, I know that, yes.
This is what's supposed to be on the website or linked to on the website. I highlighted what is on the website and what is up out.
Okay, thank you.
There's a lot more to it than what was shown on the website. There is a link on the website that says Vermont statute, which you would expect it would take you right to the full statute. It doesn't take you to any statute. It takes you to a search page. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you're never going to find it. So
Well,
you're supposed to have the actual link to the statute. That's what the law says.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll have to fix that link.
So that would need to be corrected. And then my other question is basically about the minutes that were changed and the status of the question about the solar project.
Okay, so we can't really comment on the minutes that were changed because I can't be part of,
we
I mean,
didn't change any
we didn't.
minutes.
You know, I talked to the Secretary of State office,
We-
and they told me it was already printed on the ballot, and not changed because it was too late. Because it had already been voted on and it was printed on the ballot.
That's right.
Okay, but the minutes, the original minutes to last time's meeting said that there was a discussion in executive session about adding wording to that ballot question that would require that the town plan be changed to a vote yes.
I think Jamie's going to answer that for you.
Okay.
So, that is probably my doing this. I asked, I went into executive session to ask a question around that. My concern was that the wording may need to be changed based on how, based on my understanding of what the intent of the article was. It was concluded that no change needed to be made, and so there wasn't a question about that.
Okay, we just didn't want any surprises that we were, gonna get a different question than what we had already seen printed in the paper.
There's no conspiracy, Sharon.
Okay,
Swear to God.
just wondering.
Nope.
Well,
It should be the same, yeah.
And please don't assume that we're here to destroy the town. We're not. We live here too.
Why was that not open?
Actually, it was, and the attorney actually wrote the language.
Yeah.
And
Now she needs at the last meeting. I think Dave said because he asked.
Right. Totally, session, because we had other people listening in, who are not town members, to have an opportunity to just ask a question, alert everyone to what I was asking. It was something we
Well, I don't think that question, that language should have been added anyway, because it's an advisory question. It's an advisory vote.
Correct.
And what the petition is an advisory vote. I don't know if you're even recognizing the petition. It doesn't sound like it to me.
Recognizing the what? I'm
Because
sorry.
the Addison Independent article did not say anything about a citizen petition. I had to call Andy McCauley and let him know that that is what happened. He did correct it. He did add that disclaimer or that correction at the bottom of the on. It was not in the actual article, which I found quite surprising. Because at the same time, they were printing another article about Addison on their town hall that was a petition, a citizen petition question. It was all through the article, how it was, the citizens petition for it. When it comes to Patty's article, not a word. Not one word.
Okay, I have a, can I ask you a
Citizen
question?
petition.
Can I ask you a question? So in the article, which I have been negligent and have not read because for 1,000 reasons. So you're saying that there was nothing in there about the citizen petition about getting the question on the ballot?
About handing in a petition for a vote. It says right here, advisory vote set on big Canton solar array. And there's a great big article here all about the vote. Now Canton's having a vote. Some of these people are negative, and other people, maybe there's some people that are for it, No word about the fact that it was a citizen petition vote. I called Andy, and let him know, I said, geez, Andy, this is interesting. Why is there no mention? Let's see if I can say it.
Sharon,
Sharon,
I had that conversation.
So I don't know why you are giving the town
I'm
grief
not
about
addressing
what
you,
they.
I'm not speaking to you about this, okay?
Oh, okay.
Let me answer that, Sharon, since actually he called me and talked to me. And as you can understand, my picture is in there, so I can verify that, Sharon. And
He corrected it, August notes.
Are you gonna?
The first
Okay.
version of this story did not make it clear. The select board acted to schedule the vote after the citizen meeting. Thank you. I had to call Andy to get that recognized.
I'm glad you did. And he called me and told me that you called.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
I didn't understand why I had to call.
You know what? I would say call the Addison Independent and yell at them instead of me.
Well, who was the person that talked to Andy?
I didn't write the article, Sharon. Andy did. I don't know what to tell you.
Hang on, we got one more, we have another person in public.
Yeah, is it typical that employees get 100% retirement and health insurance these days?
Typical 100%, yes. In our comparable.
Not for family plan. But
Do you have the answer? Do you get a?
Pardon me?
100%?
I think she's like a plan.
she asked, said for health insurance. And I said,
Oh,
and then I said, for health insurance, do I get 100? I haven't not had a family plan in so long. I honestly would have to go back and look. I've had a family plan because I have kids, so.
But from my experience,
I worked for years and years in Canada.
I understand that, but there's like people that have 401ks and now this is a pension plan. Do I say, well, because Joe works at John Deere, he's in a 401k, that all the employees now have to go in a 401k? We have a
I have a 403.
Right.
well, and
Similarly.
we have a plan that offers for the employees, and again, what the important thing is, we have to be competitive with our neighboring surrounding towns to do that.
Also, please note Jackson Road needs a proper stop sign.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it
Indeed.
does. Yes.
Jackson Road needs a better stop sign.
Yes, I will mention it. Yes. Yes.
Kathy?
I would like to discuss the minutes that disappeared from the town website from the August 26th meeting. I have it right here in print, what was on there, and they have been changed to look nice and neat.
And they do that because they're a draft, they haven't been voted.
It's
on.
draft, but you do not have the authority to change the draft without coming to an open meeting of the select board and changing it that way.
We have corrections that go.
And I have not heard anything about my complaint to the select board.
And I still have 10 days to do that
Not 10 more, 10 total.
total.
We have talked about it, and
Yes.
we have engaged town council.
Yes, we were talking to attorney and we're spending money on that. Yes, it's gonna
Well, you
cost us.
should, you did it illegally.
You should be happy that it's costing the town about $200, $300 for you. Yes.
We are looking into it.
Well, that's what it costs.
No,
It's-
We don't wanna start
the
getting
thing
into
is-
cost,
the
'cause
thing
we could
is-
go down a lot of roads we
Well,
don't
I'm-
want.
It's been-
I understand, but if you're like saying, you know.
I mean,
pinch pennies, it's
and just understanding is that we're here and we're happy to listen and try to address concerns. But we have people who have come here for weeks and weeks and weeks who have been personally attacking us. And it's really hard. And if you don't think that that's happening, then you should sit on the side of the table, because that's what it feels like. And so you know, we're people, we're doing our best. And do we make mistakes? Yes, we do. We do, right. We do make mistakes and we are trying to correct them. We are gonna be paying the same tax hike that everybody else is paying. And if there's, of course, always that opportunity, if you think that we're not doing our job. Again, I run unopposed. You run on Zach's run unopposed, you know, and if you don't think that we're doing what we should be doing, then the choices are there. And it's okay if that's what you think.
And
It's okay, but we're making $800 a year and we're doing our best. And sometimes the stuff that we're making decisions on is out of our wheelhouse and we are really trying to learn as we go, but it's not something that we always have a full grasp of. And so we're leaning on people who are giving us advice. We're leaning on people who are doing the work that we are overseeing. And if you don't think that we're doing a good enough job, you have the choice at the ballot box to have somebody else do the work.
And what I would say personally, it makes it really hard to come to these meetings and do this stuff for everybody. It's like, why would I come here and get my ass kicked all over the place? Why? Why would I do that?
It's hard.
Why would I sit
And
there and go?
after a while, you just get,
"Thank you
it's
for doing that to me.
exhausting.
I've like worked really hard and tried to improve the place, but let's get them in a headlock and just beat the heck out of them, because you know what? You know,
I don't
that's our
think,
mentality.
Zach and I cannot count. There is no comparison. Just to put this out there is no comparison. The amount of hours Howard puts in, Zach and I together don't match that. He is on the grounds, he is doing the work, he is here, he's talking to Rick, he is all over this town. You may not agree with all the decisions that get made, but that doesn't mean the work's not there, it doesn't mean the effort's not there. So it's okay if you disagree with us, but please understand that it's not because we're not working hard at this. Just means we either have different opinions about things or we've made a mistake. And those two things are things that can be fixed. And you can either vote us out or come and help us make the budget work better. We welcome that.
I think what would help, and I don't mean this, I'm not saying this to be. I'm saying it because it's how I feel. And I think it would help you guys, from what you just said, Teresa. I feel you're not as transparent sometimes as I think you could be. And I think people would react to you differently if you were a little more transparent.
That's
You may think you're
totally
being
fair.
totally transparent, I understand that. From my perspective, I feel like sometimes you're not. And I feel like it would change the attitude a lot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the way that you just said that makes me feel like, you know what, we probably can. And
Yeah.
that matters a lot.
But
I just want to
Like
recognize
today,
the
I'll
attitude.
say it, I dread coming here and talking to you all the time. But I'll give you credit, you were receptive, you listened, and I give you credit.
And you were
I
marvelous.
appreciate it.
Your presentation
question-
was fantastic.
Why one time?
Okay, can I just
Yeah,
recognize?
Jamie, go ahead, brother.
So this, maybe recommendation for the next time we discuss COLA raises. So what I observed is, I think you gave a COLA raise of a full percentage, 3.9%.
That's correct.
And all the salary employees have just gotten a raise in December. And so the way that comfortability increase operate is,
Yeah.
you want to divide the raise into monthly allowance.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, how many months does this apply to?
And
Okay, that's totally fair.
And that was, like I said, Jim, that was unfortunate how Rick and also Jeff
So
Stone,
I think it's-
yeah, how that all works out.
I think it's interesting. The timing of that raise was in December, correct? So
Should have been in this fiscal year.
But COLA is from July 1, 2024. The 30% or whatever you're talking about in December was when Jeff was hired.
Right.
Oh, you got a raise at that point, Rick got a raise at that point. So since your salary had been adjusted, the cost of living increase should only apply from.
The last 6 months.
5/12 of the year.
Okay, that's fair.
So instead of getting a full 3.9%.
It would have been 5/12 of that.
So I wondered if.
That's, no, that's totally fair.
Consider a policy where you consider the COLA from the time of the person's last raise.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Kathy?
Was that COLA raise budgeted?
I think
Yes, it was.
I think we always budget for the chance, for the
So
fact
it's
that
already budgeted in, so now you're giving me another one? So if you already budgeted it in,
we budgeted,
it should have kicked in on July 1.
but it's a,
Talk to me, don't yell at me.
I'm not yelling at you, I'm talking louder.
Okay.
So that those on the
so,
screen
okay.
up there can hear.
Okay, so the budgeting it in doesn't mean that people are being paid at that time. It means it's in the budget to give a cost of living increase. Like when you budget,
If you're adding in additional money that was not budgeted for,
no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we anticipate giving a cost of living increase. That doesn't mean when we pass the budget that people start getting that cost of living increase.
I know that, it's July 1st.
Right, so
So
it-
why are you
That
giving
was
it?
budgeted for. and not
Yes, but you said it's retroactive.
To July 1st.
To July
Right, and
1st.
it should have already been in the
But it-
July 1st.
Because it hadn't been voted, they could decide that they didn't want to give a cost of living increase, and then even though it was budgeted for, it wouldn't be spent. So
We
I'm sorry,
budgeted-
what doesn't make sense about
So like
that?
you're saying it's down to the budget, right?
When we do salary projections, we add
Cost of
a
living.
possibility for a cost of living increase. Then, if for some reason, what if the cost of everything went down 45%? Then the employees wouldn't need a cost of living increase, so it wouldn't get paid. But it's been budgeted
Budgeted
for
for.
FY 25, but it hasn't been approved for FY 25, the select
You
board
have it.
approved it.
We have it in the
FY
budget.
20 yes.
Exactly. And,
You good with that?
and
Patrick?
the reason why the poll is happening is like, I have a friend that, she was personnel manager to a large company of like 500 employees. And I asked about, should we do a step system for employees and X amount of years? And she looked at the amount of employees we have. She said, that would be very complicated to do a step system with the amount of employees you have. You should just really keep it simple, stupid, and just adjust their salaries, start at a wage that meets their amount, and give a COLA increase to their, so they could be just keeping up with inflation. So that's what the evidence was. And it's like, I took her advice as somebody who had this idea, and I worked on a job that had a step system. That was great, but again, once you get to the top of the step, you only got a COLA. So that was the decision why we did that. Yes, Melissa.
So I looked at the general ledger to see what people were getting paid July for, you know, at the end of the year. And the amount in the budget for Maggie, Rick, and the highway crew is what they were already being paid with their last raises. So they've been getting the fiscal 25 amount since December. So there is no COLA in those numbers, in your numbers right now, that I can see. So please, if this is different, then, you know, let me know. So I did a calculation of what the 3.9 is going to do to your budget. I've added what the employer has to pay, the FICA tax, the retirement, the extra retirement that Maggie has, the cost of health insurance. Oh, well, this is just what they're making. If I add just the wages with the retirement and the taxes, you are over almost $12,000.
Can you send that
I will
to me?
send you one.
Thank you.
This is not mine, this is Diane's, my pen doesn't work.
Okay.
So then when I take it all the way down and I say, these are your budget, this is your budget, I take your salaries, your benefits, your stipends, you have a budget of $419,200. With the projections I've done, you are projected to spend $434,500. So you are over budget $15,000. And I included in here, August 14th, the LCT sent a notice that health insurance for Blue Shield would be 22% higher. I calculated that in here, just so you could see where that's a $7,750 increase to health insurance for the year.
Okay, thank you.
So you're already, you're over. And
So what do you want me to do, is make pay cuts to individuals?
In theory, Melissa, did you put in the low, in theory, the low payment should be lower, which would bring in the low.
So let's go back, no, because let's go back to that truck. 53,000 is the amount that came in for that truck that you sold. It's 53,000. So the 45, you're not going to have 45,000 in revenue. I don't know what you're going to sell the truck for, but you're not going to sell that. I mean, the pickup. You're not going to sell that pickup for 45,000, but your budget is reflecting you're going to have money coming in. 45,000, and I don't know if you sell the pickup truck.
I mean, used trucks go high these days.
Yeah, it is, and it's a phenomenal
You should
product.
get something.
There are people that want it already, because it's a 350, it's got the plow on it, it's a diesel pickup truck, and it's meant for plowing on a heavy front rear end, heavy rear end on it. So it's
So hopefully
it's a very heavy
that'll
duty
be
truck.
offset by the 90,000 loan payment should be 24,200 for the BCLT loan.
And that community bank still has to be paid.
Yeah, so they're paying 110 off immediately, so that payment, I don't know how the payment's gonna be restructured, or if it is on that, or would we pay it over 5 years, or would we pay it now over, I don't know how it is.
Both loan notes are 5 years.
Right, but when you make a lump sum payment on it, it's gonna reduce the principal payment that has to be over the next 5 years.
Just talking about the payroll part.
Right.
They can play with the rest. As far as the municipal loan fund, June 24th, there was a motion made to add it to the agenda, but the minutes don't reflect that you actually made a motion or seconded to accept the loan. And then,
And I admit there are sometimes clerical errors, yes.
I'm just stating these, please.
I understand.
And then the truck is being held as collateral with Community National Bank at this moment, correct?
It's not, because they take it as part of their overall collateralization or something. I have an email about that, but yeah, it's not collateral for that loan. It is
They don't-
collateral to the mouth. Yeah, because I literally asked that
Do
question
you
this
have,
week.
Community National Bank doesn't have the title?
No, I have the title, but I need to send it back to the DMV with the state of Vermont as a lien holder.
Right.
So I specifically asked Community Bank if they were first lien holder, and I was told no, and I can go review that.
Right. And then, right, so I guess it's moved, but I guess because this loan was authorized, or you accepted it June 24th, and I'm concerned that because you'd already had a loan and you asked the taxpayers if they would be able to support a $230,000 article, but you didn't ask them about the 110 that you.
Couldn't budget for because it was a grant and we didn't have.
It's not a grant, it's a loan, it's a 5-year loan, so you actually committed to a 5-year loan when you only have authority. I think you only have authority to do a loan
Well,
under a year, but.
The problem is with, when you're getting money from, Vermont,
Municipal loan fund.
yeah, it's really tough to do it. Sometimes, we ask for, talk to them sometime in March about this, and they're like, we'll get to it. It
So
could
they
be.
they do it on the quarter or something. They have meetings when they're.
And it's, it's not realistically, when you get a loan from a bank, they go, okay, here's the money, here you go. They're like, well, we'll maybe get your money in July or August.
They have a
You're like,
board meeting, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, they're not very, forthcoming on the exact date when you're getting the money. And that's a problem when you're having a vehicle delivered, because the guy wants his money and you go, well, you'll have to wait till August or September. And he goes, well, you're gonna have to wait till August and September on your truck. And we've sold this truck and now we're like, don't have a truck. And it's like, oh. And it's paving season. So.
And then, the other thing, you haven't got to the financials. Are you gonna do financials? I just have a few things on that, but I can wait for that for now.
We've already done those.
You did the financial statements?
Not the statements, we have.
Not the budget.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So to Melissa's point of, I think you asked, what can I do? To Melissa's point of, you may be over budget, under budget here, and kind of all these
Yeah.
things that are going on.
It's a roadmap, right?
Right, the best thing you can do is kind of this next exercise, keep monitoring it monthly. And maybe if you're going over in one spot, see where you can kind of cut in other spots and just trying to balance it out somehow. But that's kind of what this whole exercise is for.
I really appreciate that, but it's like, when we do this budget, I'm looking at, for a real example would be like salt is a real issue for us, because, salt will be, let's say, right now, maybe, we'll say $50 a ton. And we're budgeting money this year, fantasizing it's going to be $50 a ton, and then all of a sudden, it comes back a year later when we start to purchase the salt, it is now $95 a ton. So it's like, that goes with all our things like plow blades, all these commodities that we really kind of like forecasting and hopefully trying to make a decision. Do we have enough or don't have enough? And I think we kind of like hedge on, honestly, in my opinion, and is to have more money than less money, because if we're short, then Rick goes, where am I gonna get this money for? He goes, I need $3,000 for plow blades. And it's like, and I'm out. And it's just like, I don't know where to tell him, it's like, and I just can't reach into other funds and take money from.
In the last 3 to 5 years, the prices have varied so wildly on
It's
so much
crazy,
of this stuff, that even projections that worked for us previously don't seem to be working. I don't know if there's not a formula, I just think that we've been able to count on previously is, have not been things we've been able to count on in terms of regular increases. Mary, hang on a second, Mary.
I guess what bothers me is that the question I asked whether the COLA was in the budget or not, nobody really answered.
It is, it's from 0 to, I believe, 5%. You put that in the budget.
But most is on the shoulder this and I know you haven't had a chance to review them, but I just don't see any, people are bringing issues up, and I was a culvert thing a couple of weeks ago.
The culvert.
There's, when you talk about using the emergency funds to buy a culvert, there's no, it just doesn't seem to be any, responsibility to the budget. And I just, I've managed budgets for a long time, I'm not seeing it's trying out to, okay, we're gonna be over here. I understand that cost of salt fluctuates, I know oil fluctuates. That stuff's out of your control, I get it. But when we're making decisions on a COLA, that is within your control. And I'm just not seeing that there's any concern.
I thought we had that in the town budget.
So again, the town budget was many, many months ago, and I can go back to my spreadsheets and document what we did as calculations, but I don't have that information in my head or in front of me.
Right.
So I would say, as I remember talking about the budget, we always, and I think this has been past practice, and Teresa can verify with me on this, that we would say, okay, we're not going to see what the cost of living is. We're going to make a decision on the cost of living farther down the road because we're going to wait till June to see what it is. So we're going to sit there and assume raises are going to be from 0 to 5%. And we're going to go into that vicinity on that amount of money. We will bank this amount of money away for raises. And then we go through the process of going to northeast, CPI for the Northeast, and this Northeast for CPI here, that's 3.9% for the year. So we're going, that will be the raises because that's how we determine what is actually fair for the employees. We look at what CPI is and we go, we had from 0 to 5%, and but that's the process.
That process, I mean, we sit there and like in what, like a month and a half, we start all of our budget meetings for town meeting day to have a budget ready, right? And so in those times, we're incredibly well versed on where. I also have, I can tell you, I look at our spreadsheets and I look at all of that, but in terms of what we have spent money on, what's on my fingertips, what's right at the front of my brain, without knowing to go in ahead of time,
And that's the conversation we had two meetings ago, and I think the last meeting about making sure that the budget versus actual is actually up to date and correct, so you do have the information. Which I'm still not confident that, there's people that know more about that.
well,
But,
we have to better.
but budgets, they could be higher or lower, and you can like guess high or guess low, and you're never going, if you hit spot on, it's like, I think it's a rarity. I don't know, you can talk to the accountants.
I mean, I think that
Or you work for Heinsberg, and how many times are they spot on?
Right, I was just saying, it's a question about the data entry and what it has to be booked, debited to the expenses? Or is it about something else?
I think it goes too far into accounting for me to answer, but I think Melissa's answered it a couple of times in the meetings. It's, if you don't have the information that's correct, and you can't make those decisions, that's all.
Right.
Yes, Sharon.
Did you just say that we tried to target a 5% raise for staff salaries, is that what you said, that you're?
No,
What did you say, zero?
We said we
0.
look at 0 to 5.
0 to 5, because for this year, from 24 to 25, from 68,272 to 79,800 is 16.88%.
Again, that's a
That's not-
salary
that's-
adjustment.
That's not the cost of living increase.
No,
That's not the cost of living.
that's a salary adjustment.
Cost of living. So how do you justify a cost of living on top of that? We just got 16%.
That's what Jamie was talking about prorating it.
Prorating it, yeah.
And that's just like a lot of money, you know,
Okay.
that's a huge thing. I never got raised like that in my whole life. That much money in 1 year.
Okay, and Kathy?
I think might be missing the point. Going forward, you as a select board, Maggie as a town clerk, need to have information in front of you, knowing how much money you have before you go spending anymore. You need to be transparent about it, and you need to have the facts in front of you. Not that you've got to get it somewhere else. No, I don't know. You made that cost of living increase without knowing some of your financial situations. And going forward, that needs to not happen anymore. You
Okay.
need to put a freeze on it until you get your financial situation in order.
Okay. Any other
Chris
comments?
Whitehouse.
Chris, we can't really hear you. You're just cutting out. We can't really hear you.
Are you speaking to me? Oh, my.
Yeah, your
Oh, I
mic
don't
is
mean to be speaking. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, that's okay. Your mic is on.
Okay, I will try to turn it off
Thank you.
Okay,
and figure out how.
any more public comment? Okay,
Do you have any,
excuse me? Please.
So we're a little more than that, but these are, so a lot of, there's been a lot of inflation for the last, for the 2 preceding years, it's been, something like 17% since 2022. There's this huge lag in municipal ability to fundraise and spend between the inflation that happens, which you don't expect, of course, and when you have to do the COLA, which is the next year. And then when you have to hire somebody, it's I'm making whatever it is I'm making, and the wages have just gone up tremendously.
Right.
So if we should expect about a 15 to 16% increase in the budget, just for inflation, to absorb the costs that have gone up over the last 2.5 years. And then anything on top of that, what you can talk about.
Well, and if you want to lower, then you're going to have to do cut services, and
that's where
that's
it
what,
gets complicated.
which would be, how much salt, how much plowing, and how much you want to do. Those are probably our biggest expense items that we have that are variables.
Yeah.
And
Inflation, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but kind of not following totally, because we've been within budget up through the end of the fiscal 23 audit, fiscal 24 unaudited. I realize it's unaudited, kind of shows we're within budget. So we're not making up for prior years, we're just trying to budget for this year. And inflation this year has been coming down like 2.something% right now.
Right.
So cost should be, we shouldn't be seeing those huge increases now, we should have seen them 2 years ago.
Well, just kind of, what happens if you have a 10% drop, like the worst inflation we had was just under 10% 2 years ago. That year, the town would suddenly found itself spending a lot more money, and one would assume that if we were living that year, we would see the deficit. And it might run deficit the following year,
also have a lot of inflation that maybe could have been budgeted for the year. You vote up town meeting in March and you're talking about spending money a year later. You can't respond quickly to inflation that quickly. It's like this train has left the station, you can't stop it.
You can't catch up to the train ever.
Right. And so I think we're just seeing, and I think it's being generally true in all the towns, these huge tax increases.
Where you do at Heinsberg, right?
Yeah, they're a little bigger than Heinsberg, but it's not. I mean,
Little, the increases.
the increase is a little bigger than Heinsberg.
Yeah.
But I think it's just something that happens and it shouldn't happen in the future, I would guess, because hopefully the inflation is behind us, unless it's not. One hopes.
Yeah, and, you know, as costs get passed on from an employment team there, raises and people, manufacturers add that cost to the product, and it's just.
You also mentioned the capacity of the health insurance.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Not much that we can do.
You gotta think that.
Right.
Exactly. Well, the trouble is, then employees leave. And you know what?
But then we have to replace them, and that's where,
You know what, employees leave places all the time.
And you know what?
It's-
Then
it's-
I wouldn't want to
it's
be the guy to
complicated.
tell that to Rick or Jeff Stone, because those are really good employees that work really hard for us and say, sorry, you gotta do this stuff. And he's gonna say, sorry, I gotta go. And
And
find
so
people to replace them is,
Howard, we heard that speech. That's,
you know what? I'm just telling you, it sounds like it's a real good plan to reduce those things, but when you do that, there's a backlash.
there's always.
Yes,
an
Diane?
What I'm concerned about, Howard, is that you're not getting the information that you need in the salary, to me, it should be a higher skill position. And there is a skill set here that needs training, what's happening as far as training is involved, to be able to give you the kinds of reports that Melissa and so that you can have the information to make decisions. I know that you're working very hard, and I know you put a lot of time into it. You just don't know if you have information about finance information.
And-
Another way to phrase
It's not a
that
shot at Maggie, that's just a shot at.
is, another way to phrase that.
It's a highly paid position, there's a skill set. that you don't have.
I appreciate that.
Another way
Yes,
to phrase that is if you went out today and advertised the treasurer position for $80,000 a year with full benefits paid, I think you'd see a difference. People will find.
well, I
It's
hear,
something to consider.
I hear what
Is
you're
that
saying.
person gonna be the clerk too for that money?
That's a reasonable question as well.
Yeah, I know.
So, and I think that training is certainly something that we move forward, and I think that, you know, Maggie's open to training. She's done a lot of different training as she's learned this job, and it doesn't mean that she's done getting training. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means right now, we've hired somebody to help us stopgap, to kind of get it fixed. And then once we do that, then we can move forward and maybe, and I'm saying this right off the top of my head, maybe part of that is Maggie taking some treasurer training courses so that she is able to better manage
Which
whatever.
I have been looking for since I started with no handoff and in the middle of COVID. Never flat out refused to come down, there are software people. There's a gap between what certain accounting things are being asked for and what goes into and comes out of memory. And Melissa herself recommended a class for me, which I signed up for, an online study yourself class. I signed up for immediately, and she came back a week later and said, never mind, it's not relevant. So it's not that I'm not looking, and it's not that I'm not trying. If there are things that haven't been done exactly the way fund accounting should be done, it's not because I am trying to cheat or steal or hide. Anyone who's come to me asking for numbers has gotten them. That's all.
So we're always trying to get better.
Any
Every day.
more public comment?
Could they possibly mow Spalding Road? That has only been mowed twice this year. I've been having to do my own yard all the way from the corner, all the way down to my property line, which I've never had to do before.
Okay.
They are sweeping all of my property now, but they have not done, up and down Spalding hardly at all, and it's really.
Can we pass that along? Yes, thank you. We'll pass that along to our,
Yes, Melissa? And I think, again, the select board's been very generous with its time and effort, and it's now 7:36.
come on, come and sit down.
Yesterday was, last meeting was 8:30. So again,
Come sit
we're
down.
listening to you.
Just so you,
I give up. I give up.
Okay, any more public comment? Okay, hearing none, let us move on and communicate.
Betty Hudson sent a letter, out, saying, please no solar field. There is, I know Brendan brought up a concern about the intersection of Pease and Jersey, right here at the end, suggesting that, she's amazed at what we can't get, and that it should be a two-way stop. I spoke with Rick about that after I was in, and the state has been down and evaluated that intersection several times, and where it stands now is what they believe is the right thing.
Okay. I know we've gone through that. I've actually rode with the state guy as he evaluated all our road signs and everything else that goes on there. He was like, no, we don't want to do this. And it's just, since they are actually that is, that would be a tough thing. I understand that, and I know that people have been hit by bikes and cars, and for myself personally, I always stop there, even if I'm, because it's a bad intersection. Yes.
okay,
All right. I'm meeting again with, the 5 towns to discuss our, bar situation. They seem to be improving, but again, what we're really pushing towards the action is having them become full-time, 24/7, 365. To make sure that we call for an ambulance, they show up. We spent $50,000 a year for fire, and we spent $10,000 for ambulance. And some of the projections might be $43,000 for the ambulance service. But I think when people need an ambulance, they're really not going to sit there and say, wow, that costs money.
and if you
And it's
didn't
like-
know, last year, they were, ours was unavailable for a total of 72 days.
Which is 2.5 months.
Which is 2.5 months of, not, of course, not in a row, but when you add up all the hours, it was about 72 days. And getting ambulances from Charlotte and Middlebury is 45 minutes.
Or Bristol.
It's 45 minutes, and that just doesn't feel right, that we don't
If-
have, that we have
If
that.
you have a loved one
available.
on the ground, you would not be happy to wait 45 to an hour for an ambulance to show up. Yes, ma'am.
Is that a volunteer position?
It's-
Is it trying to make it a paid position?
There's 3 people that are paid, and we're really pressing them. I mean, they run 1,300 calls a year. They come into Panton probably maybe 90 to 100 times a year, maybe more than that. And the problem is, there's Virgin's Fire probably comes into Panton maybe 6 times a year. And so we have this offset of money. We're paying a lot of money for fire, which we have to pay, or we weren't paying much money at all for gens, and they were like, well, $5,000 would do it, and we have these subscription things. These subscription things doesn't mean anything to you. If you're paying it $100, that doesn't mean you're gonna get priority service. That means you just gave them $100.
Right.
That's all that means.
And I think the hard thing about the whole the way that it's set up is that they have 3 full-time employees, which doesn't cover 24/7. And it traditionally, I know when I moved here 20-something years ago, that they had like 20 to 25 volunteers. And since COVID, they're down to fewer than 10. And
So
that's
that's-
where the gap
So
is.
there's like 3 full-time people that are paid for VARs and then volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't have enough volunteers to fill
Fill
all those
the
hours.
gaps.
Additionally, the level of training that's required is getting more and more and more. So to be a volunteer who's fully qualified is extremely costly.
And the trouble is, if you're a full-time person, they want you to work more hours to fill in the gaps, and that creates burnout, and you're going like, I'm only making like $45,000 or $50,000 a year, which is their pay is way too low to actually keep these people because they're all young and they're going, because they get excited about the career, and then they go,
And then they can go to Williston or Rowington and make a lot more,
yeah, they run out the door.
which is not an unusual thing in Addison County. I mean, similarly, things happen, with, teachers frequently come here and teach for a couple years and then.
So we're really trying to work hard on figuring how to get them and keep them and making sure, because your house is on fire 9 out of 10 times, from my experience doing that for 30 years, most people get out of their house. But if you fall down the stairs or your loved one has a medical emergency, you need it now. You don't,
It's just
and
one of those
it's a
things.
material thing. A house, most people have insurance, you can replace that. You're not gonna be able to replace it. So,
So we just feel like with the coordination of the 5 towns, kind of creating a financial,
Another position, another full-time employee.
maybe more than one.
maybe 6.
I mean, to be
Total of
able to
6
cover
employees.
24/7, we're gonna need, multiple people so that we have days off and. all of
7
that
would be
stuff.
the ideal number of full-time people. So somebody can take a vacation day or sick.
And then they can use their volunteers as drivers or as, in other places. So
It's
where the level of.
complicated, and they're like, oh, we like the 40-hour pay, and I'm going like, no, you're going to work the 24/48, and your overtime starts after 28/16, which is like under the Fair Labor Standard Act, which is wholly different, and they're going, well, I won't be making overtime then, and it's like, that's right, you won't be, but you'll be working 24/48, and you'll work 120 days a year, and then you have your vacation time and reduction, and if you call in sick or you take a vacation day, it takes it off your hours of work, counted as hitting the 212 hours.
We're just trying to we're working together with the other 4 towns to make it a more professional organization that will attract and keep people.
And they're kicking and screaming all the way, dragging them there. So it's
But
one
we're
more
working
of
on
our many challenges.
Yeah, that's good, but it's worth it.
Yes, it is. I don't want to be the person to say, wow, you saved $50 on my taxes, and my wife or husband's dead.
Right. No, that's not good.
Congratulations. Nobody wants to do it.
Any more communications?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Let's review the 25 review expenditure data.
Okay, that's
Yes,
done.
thank you.
Let's see, what month is it?
This is the
September.
expenses.
So we're a third of the way, a quarter of the way through the year? A quarter of the way through the year.
Nothing that is
Jumping out at us.
scary.
Does Nemrick do monthly budgets? Am I saying that right?
Nemrick?
Uh,
No.
I thought it was. But the other thing I see is, maybe to Melissa's point, is nothing, it's just something. If I look at salaries, like I look at the road crew, road foreman, highway crew, and treasurer's salary, it's all the same. If you just take the 15 for 2 months and multiply it by 6 to get to 12, you're gonna be at around 90,000 rather than 74. So I don't know if there's timing issues with approvals in there, reapproving there. So I'm not sure I'm looking at one, but it might just lend to Melissa's point that salaries are gonna be over budget, just make a note of that, and there might be other places you should cut.
Well, I was just going to say, I haven't got the bird right in front of me to do a detailed report, but this period might include the next year's payroll.
to do.
The way they cut off.
The way they cut off.
Great, thank
And
you.
we can't tell for sure, but that would be my guess, because we are planning to pay any of the team more than the budget for.
Okay.
Right.
But this is kind of hard to look at, you kind of gotta look at each line, divide, and then not everything's even through the year, certain things are
Yeah.
seasonal.
And, right, exactly, and so we look at
I'm-
things
I'm
and
glad you appreciate us trying to
that's,
like,
and the other
us
thing is,
neophytes who aren't,
Numbers
CPAs
people.
looking at.
But I don't see anything that's.
there's nothing
sticks out.
egregious on here, and the other part is that, yeah, you know, when you look at things that are at zero, you're like, oh, that is something that we're gonna see in the winter, but things that are long-term, you know, if we're a quarter of the way through the year, through the fiscal year, most things should be under 25%, and most things are.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's like 18%, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Becky is helping us work some of the financial.
I've been talking about it.
Becky works for the town of Hinesburg. And
Right, well, I noticed that, I was thinking, content, we have related somehow, I noticed.
so Beck,
Yes. Yes.
so Becky's helping us, she's from bringing great municipal experience from the town of Hinesburg and trying to help us do some adjustments on this stuff. So she is going to come in maybe 4 hours a month to do some adjustments and help us on that.
Melissa has found some deficiencies, she spoke of some again tonight, and I have a list.
Yeah, so
We're
we're
working on it.
making an effort to trying to fix this and get this more on track than it is, you know.
We're basically doing what Melissa has discovered, I'm just, I'm Melissa's hands in the software. She's giving me a list, and she'll probably give me a bigger list after we do the first list. I think the first list is pretty much finished, and we now are addressing,
Go ahead,
just
Becky.
this last visit with Maggie, we are addressing the auditor's report for FY 20.
Mhm.
And looking at the list of deficiencies that they found, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right. Some of them are impossible for us to fix where, you know, you need more than one people to doing items. There's just, it's almost.
Just having me come in regularly for a few hours a month would help with some of that. And the fact that Melissa has found so many things means that she's got her eyes on it. So it's not quite what the auditors were envisioning.
Right.
We're looking at things.
And I would say, unfortunately, since the changeover from people who've been doing the budgets, they haven't been always doing what they were supposed to do. And so you kind of like fall into this bad habit, and now correcting it is like, you know, you should have known. It's like, I didn't even know I should have known. I don't know what I don't know, you know.
Right, you don't know what you don't know. And in some cases, we're now looking at things in FY 23, which you can't fix without the auditors.
Right.
So,
Right.
we'll just see how that plays out this weekend.
So please have patience with us. We're doing that, right?
We're working hard.
Okay, anything else? Have to furniture. Anything else?
No.
Nothing?
No,
Do we need an executive session? No?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't need.
Yeah, make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I second that. All in favor? Aye.
Is
Non-debatable.
7:49.
Thank you for all coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input.
Sorry? That would be amazing, thank you,
Folding chairs could go back in the racks, the other ones can stay where they are.
thank you.
Becky, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You know, it's like, it's a,